Today I want to review an Athletic article talking about the Arizona Coyotes, and they're deeming this the dysfunction in the desert. They're saying there's lots and lots of issues with that organization, including the possibility they could be in a worse financial mess than they were before the new ownership came in. We'll discuss this article coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a pretty important article here in The Athletic today by Katie Strange talking a lot about the Arizona Coyotes and all the issues in that organization. It's titled The Dysfunction in the Desert. A lot of the information covered in the article was kind of a recap of incidents that have happened over the past year or so under this new ownership group, and obviously talking a lot about other things that weren't necessarily public knowledge, including some pretty concerning financial issues. So obviously I want to kind of go through this here with a bit of a fine-tooth comb. Hopefully this video doesn't go too long, but certainly after reading this article, I already had concerns about the long-term viability of the Coyotes in Arizona. Now I just really kind of makes me cringe a little bit, makes me really concerned about the future of the team in its current location, and really like the whole organization. There just seems to be a lot of issues head to toe, and there could even be an investigation that's ongoing right now that the NHL has not acknowledged, which we'll get into here as to why we consider that to be a possibility. So first up, I just want to let you know the author of the article interviewed over 50 people. So it's not like this is coming from one or two people that are maybe disgruntled or spreading false information. Over 50 different people were interviewed during this article process. Some were current employees that spoke anonymously, some were former employees, and some were other people around the league with a lot of close intimate knowledge of the situation. So it's really a broad variety of people here that have contributed to this information. Of course, as we know, the Arizona Coyotes have been, a team that's been, dysfunctional, I guess is the best way, the way this article outlines its headline here, for a long time. Of course, we saw GM John Chayka up and leave abruptly last year going into the bubble. I mean, that's part of the issue here as well. But obviously, let's kind of go through this here. The main things that are kind of covered here. One, it looks as though there could be an investigation right now taking place with the team, as there is a law firm in Arizona that's been recently meeting with Coyote employees and going over a number of things, including irregularities in financial statements. And these are financial statements that would be used with the team when it comes to their banks and lenders, as well as information they provide to the league. Of course, the league also has a fund that all teams have access to, which largely comes from revenue sharing. It's called the Industry Growth Fund, and there's some concerns over misappropriation of the funds being used from that the Coyotes are getting access to. So clearly that's a major red flag here. And there's also at least one incident of alleged sexual harassment that apparently took place at a team holiday party, I believe it was, in December of 2019. Now, we have to say the word alleged there because at this point, nothing's been proven in court. Other things being looked into apparently by the law firm, as well as the whole overall workplace culture. Some describe it, the ones that are working there especially, as a pretty much toxic work environment. Apparently, there's also concerns over their health protocols when it comes to their operational plan for dealing with COVID-19. I know there's a lot of employees that apparently would prefer to work from home and feel that it's totally suitable and able to be done, and they're being given a hard time over that. This article also goes on to talk about the fact that there have been, I believe, at least a couple of occasions where employees of the Coyotes have formed complaints with the league, directly with the commissioner's office at the NHL, with concerns over the workplace culture and environment that they're dealing with. Now, of course, we also have a situation that's come up lately with Steve Sullivan, who was an assistant general manager with the organization for a fair bit of time. Was the interim guy there for a little while before they hired Bill Armstrong, and he was given a 4-year contract extension just last year. And then in the last week or so, we heard that his contract was terminated, and there really wasn't much made publicly about this. There wasn't really a whole lot of details provided, and now that we do have confirmation through this article that Steve Sullivan is suing the team and demanding arbitration here to get a settlement here, as he feels he should not have been fired, obviously, or should be compensated in whatever respect here to that contract. So another strange situation. Of course, we know the Chayka situation based on what they went through there. Of course, the Chayka situation led to the loss of draft picks, so obviously that hurt the team. team goes over to cover their first pick in the 2020 draft, which we know turned out to be Mitchell Miller, who they later renounced because of all the whole past situation with him. And apparently after that took place, there was a lot of finger pointing within the organization about who was ultimately responsible, and there's just a lot of turmoil. There's reports in this article as well that basically you can't call Alex Marullo, the owner, you can't call him by his first name. He does not like that. He prefers to be called Mr. Marullo, and apparently if you call him by his first name, you're bound to be in trouble for that as well. So to kind of summarize things a little bit more, essentially there's a lot of financial concerns. Obviously, we've seen what the issues they've had. I mean, we saw situations where players were not given their bonuses on time this past offseason. We had word that they were behind on their payments with the arena for their lease payments. That was quickly looked after once that became public knowledge, though. Obviously, that was kind of, they worked together to make those arrangements, but still, that's not a good situation. This article outlines a lot on how the owner of the team and his team, how they deal with creditors and paying their bills, and a lot of it really does not look like good business people at all. It seems like when they're dealing with vendors and a lot of these other accounts, essentially is they tend not to pay their bills on time. They let it get to the point where it's kind of like almost like a collection item, or that they're getting legal representation, and then from there they try to come to a settlement and pay them at 30 to 50% on the dollar. That seems to be their way of handling a lot of their obligations, which really just that's not a good way to rub people the right way. I mean, you're going to burn a lot of bridges and you're going to hurt a lot of sponsorship opportunities. When it comes to NHL, obviously you have to build relationships with a lot of local businesses and build up a lot of local sponsors to help promote the team, especially in an area like that where they've struggled with attendance. They've struggled to generate revenue enough to kind of get things going here. Like, it's not a good way to do business. So even though he's only been the owner there a short time, it's really not good. Now, there was also, in this article, talks about the fact when they were looking to replace John Chayka, going through the GM interview process before they hired Bill Armstrong, a number of the other candidates also spoke anonymously as well to the reporter at The Athletic, and also talked about the fact that they had a lot of concerns once they interviewed, that they didn't even want the job anymore, that they were kind of, a lot of people were warned around from the NHL circles that you might want to be careful about taking that job. It's not a great work environment. And then, of course, they also mentioned that they had, after meeting with Alex Marullo, his son Alex Jr., Xavier Gutierrez in there as well, that they felt like they really did not understand how to run a hockey team, essentially. That they just really lacked a lot of fundamentals on what it was going to take to run a successful hockey business. Obviously, he might be a successful businessman and have kind of bought other businesses when they were, not doing so well and turned them around. We've seen him in the restaurant business. He's been in the casino business as well as others. But the same tactics are not necessarily going to work when it comes to a sports franchise. Now, we've also seen cases, which something I wasn't aware of, is before he bought the Coyotes back a long time ago, back in 2011, he attempted to buy an NBA franchise. And the deal was all set to happen, but once he got really far into the process, the league backed out and they decided not to proceed with him buying an NHL, with buying an NBA franchise after all. And he didn't really say a lot about it, but many believed around NBA circles that it was financial concerns, that the deal was too tightly leveraged, is kind of what people were saying. So, it could be a situation with this NHL ownership now, and it was a long time later, that maybe they're not as well off as they might seem. Obviously, you can have a lot of wealth on paper, and it doesn't mean you have access to a lot of liquidity. And obviously, and the other thing too is that during this pandemic, a lot of businesses have certainly taken a beating, and they might not be on the solid grounding that they make it out to be. There's some NHL people as well that are saying that Bill Armstrong actually have taken that work environment that was already considered toxic and not really overly easy to work in, and made it even worse. I mean, we've heard comments from Bill Armstrong proclaiming his admiration for the ownership there, saying that he's some of the finest people he's ever met. And, obviously, if they get along, that's great. But, at the end of the day, a lot of NHL people just were kind of rubbed the wrong way with how they're, doing business there. They had a 2-year plan to make the team profitable. Many people in the organization felt that was not realistic at all. So obviously they had concerns over the plan. And obviously at the end of the day here, they need a new arena really more than anything else. And if they're having a hard time paying player bonuses and they're having a hard time keeping up with their current arena lease payments, and they're obviously, the way they're doing business to pay their bills, is that really going to bode well for them getting a new arena and becoming a long-term successful team in the desert? It certainly doesn't seem like the odds are very much in their favor in that regard. I mean, at the end of the day, the ownership group themselves have acknowledged that staying with their current arena will not work out long term. So when you factor everything in here and you take a look at the fact that, like I said, there's the words dumpster fires being used in this article by people describing the situation in Arizona. Some current employees even called it a chaotic shit show. It really does not bode well for how things are going. But the thing out of this that can probably concern me the most, as much as that toxic work environment can't be good and it's going to have a hard time keeping good people in the organization, obviously the misappropriation of funds with the league revenue sharing money is by far a major thing. Now, NHL themselves would not comment on anything in this article, so I'm not really sure if there really is an investigation going on. But like I said in the beginning of this video, with the law firm most recently going in to interview employees talking about all these things, including a big one, the financial stuff being high up on that list, you have to think that they're probably being investigated, but maybe they're just doing it under the radar here. They don't want to acknowledge it publicly. I really don't know, but clearly something is going on there, and it's not a good look at all. I mean, you have to really wonder what the long-term future for this team holds. Now, after this article came out, right before I went to record this video, I did see that the ownership group and the Arizona Coyotes did put out a statement. I believe they did so through ESPN. It was ESPN reporter Greg Wyshynski, who I've seen sharing it on Twitter, basically condemning the article and saying that the Athletic has had it out for them over the last several months, and that they've kind of been on I think they called it like a harassment campaign, and kind of denied a lot of the stuff, but they didn't really address any of the real hard issues here directly in their statement. They just basically said that the Athletic's been out to get them, and it's like a smear campaign essentially. So it's not a good look at all. If you're not subscribed to the Athletic, I recommend checking it out. You can quite often get a free trial. This is why I subscribe to it. Some good journalism like this. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else, and it's a really well written article. It's kind of long, so if you have the Athletic subscription, go check it out for sure. It's called Dysfunction in the Desert, and it really shows a big open look here by, like I said, there's over 50 people that have been interviewed for this article, so you know that a lot of the stuff definitely has to be true, and it's not like it's coming from a couple of disgruntled people, because that's kind of what their statement from the Coyotes made it sound like, that a few disgruntled former employees are talking to the Athletic and kind of smearing them and out to get them type of thing. But that just doesn't seem to be the case. There's a lot of people here have a lot of concerns about what's going on in that organization, and it just sounds like utter chaos, and I just really have a lot of concerns over their long-term viability. Let me know what you think on this article. Do you think the Coyotes will remain in the desert, or do you see them relocating? If they have to relocate and the NHL has to step in and help this franchise yet again, where are they going to end up long term? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.